Do we need the Moderna booster? Is there any data that suggests that we might?
Well, Brian, I'm not sure we need the Moderna booster. Moderna actually has shown to be much more effective and lasting than Pfizer or Johnson and Johnson. And for that reason, we are seeing some breakthroughs in Moderna. So I think the FDA was convinced by saying, well, there are some breakthroughs. We have excess vaccine. Let's go ahead and give the boosters. But the data to support giving boosters is not as strong as with the other situations. However, I think there was a very difficult position that the FDA advisory panel was put on, since the White House has pretty much already said people are going to be getting boosters. And with the data that came out with the mix and match, if they didn't approve boosters for people that got Moderna, I think everybody would just be out there getting a Pfizer shot or something else.
Yeah, and I appreciate your honesty and your candor here, because a lot of the data that we're getting is coming from Israel. And I know you've been on top of it. You're the doctor. I'm a data guy. I've been throwing the data out there. There was no real Moderna in Israel, so we don't have a lot of that data as well. We know the Pfizer wears off. Is there any indication that we're seeing the same kind of declination in efficacy among Moderna?
There is a little bit of data to suggest that. There's actually a study from Kaiser Permanente that showed very clearly a decreasing protection with all three vaccines, a less so with Moderna than with Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson, but clearly there's a decrease in protection over time with all three vaccines.
Yeah, and the idea being is there's still a huge number of people, particularly in emerging markets worldwide, that are not vaccinated. Last time I checked, doctor, this was a global pandemic, meaning we could get new strains and variants in other parts of the world that ultimately make themselves here. Is a better use of this excess vaccination or vaccine sending it to parts of the world where a lot of people, hundreds of millions or maybe more than a billion, still don't even have one shot?
I think we can do both, Brian. I think we really need to ramp up production globally and really need to ramp up not only production, but actually distribution and supply chains. Because again, getting vaccines to the docks in countries is not enough. You got to get it into people's arms. So vaccinating the world still is a big challenge that we haven't taken. And you're absolutely right. As long as there's a pandemic anywhere, we need to be concerned here in the United States. But the other challenge is obviously that there's still about 70 to 75 million Americans that have yet to be vaccinated. And I think the combination of not having people vaccinated locally and globally still concerns me. And even though people are starting to act like the pandemic is over, I want to be real clear. This is far from over.
Yeah, and let me ask you about that. I know seasonality, doctor, is a terrible word in the scientific community as well, but it does seem like we're following some seasonal patterns. You guys in the South got hit hard, easing off now. Weather's been beautiful here in the Northeast. There are still 1.5 million unvaccinated but eligible people in New York City alone, more than the unvaccinated population of some smaller states, all in a small area, Bronx, Brooklyn, New York. Do you think that we will get kind of a last gasp fall or winter pop or surge? Or do you think because of prior infection, which New York got hit hard in the beginning, we might actually be over this damn thing?
Well, I think the latter is hopefully what's going to happen. I think we're all counting on that. But the reality is predicting this virus has been incredibly difficult. And I think it all is going to depend on two things: human behavior and what happens with strains, in new strains and the emergence of new strains. If you have a new strain to which there's not a lot of immunity and we're pretty much all naive, there may be another surge during this winter where people go indoors, when people are, in crowded conditions. But the reality is, as I said, predicting this virus has proven to be incredibly difficult. And to me, it's still too early to call victory.